Today, spot Bitcoin ETF issuers surpassed Satoshi Nakamoto to become the largest holders of the cryptocurrency. And Alex Thorn of Galaxy Digital discusses the crypto market's retreat from recent highs and whether quantum computing headlines out of Google are spooking crypto investors. Welcome to CNBC's Crypto World. I'm Tanea McKeel. Crypto markets in the red this morning. As of noon Eastern, Bitcoin lost 1.5% and was trading at $96,330. Ether fell 6% to $3,600, and XRP tumbled 12.5% to $2.09. All right, a quick update on Bitcoin ETFs. The asset managers behind those funds, in less than 1 year since their launch, have become the largest holders of Bitcoin. Asset managers now hold about 1,104,000 Bitcoin, just surpassing holdings of anonymous founder Satoshi Nakamoto, who is said to control 1,100,000 Bitcoin. Asset managers hold about 5% of all Bitcoin, and Bitcoin makes up 1% of assets under management across all ETFs. These funds began trading in the US back in January. The launch was marked as a milestone in getting institutional interest and even adoption into the cryptocurrency. All right, for our main story, I spoke with Alex Thorn, head of firm-wide research at Galaxy Digital, about the crypto market's recent retreat. I also asked him about a headline from Google that had some crypto investors up in arms. The tech giant unveiled a new quantum computing chip dubbed Willow, which Google says is a major milestone. That had some worried it could spell trouble for the cryptographic technology that keeps Bitcoin secure. I asked Thorn about that point as well. All right, Alex, it is great to see you. Thank you for joining us today. Let's start with what's going on in the market today. A big week last week, a little reversal today and yesterday. What do you make of it?
I mean, you've seen some big liquidations that have enhanced the drawdown, but I think anytime an asset moves up so quickly as it did, Bitcoin was up 40% in November. It's rational to see people take gains, to see some resistance at key psychological levels like 100K. I don't think it changes anything about even the near-term sort of thesis for Bitcoin, but absolutely some volatility happening the last few days. I think you'll see it, recover and move higher.
Obviously, a lot of bullishness heading into 2025, but just looking at these last couple weeks of the year, where do you expect to see us finish for Bitcoin at the end?
It's honestly hard to say. It's probably called two likely outcomes. One, more volatility and chop in and around or slightly below the 100K level. And then one where, if we really see that dam break higher above 100K, we were close. We got to about $104,000 Bitcoin. I think it could be a pretty rapid move higher after that. But again, it's really, I think the market knows that it's supposed to anticipate many bullish catalysts, and we're just sort of trying to price where that is and react to news as it happens. But I would say around here, around 100K is very likely. But I wouldn't expect any significant downside from where we are now.
Next question, you kind of just touched on this, but we are in this natural period of digestion after 100K. Is there anything in particular that you are tracking, or that any of us should be tracking as we look at it? I guess the question is, what would make Bitcoin and the crypto market broadly kind of resume its uptrend heading into next year?
Additional announcements from corporates or nation states about adoption of Bitcoin would certainly, I think, cause the market to react. I think it's very possible and even possibly likely that you'll start to see that happen over the next couple months. Any kind of further clarity from the incoming Trump administration on regulatory policy. You've started to see some really positive stories about the new SEC chair nominee, Paul Atkins, and his history. I saw today a story that he had blamed the U.S. for FTX's failure, referring specifically to the inability to properly regulate crypto exchanges onshore, having pushed people to an offshore venue like that. That's very consistent with how the industry thinks. So yeah, I think more clarity, more adoption stories could definitely move the needle here. Macro changes in the macro environment could also have an impact.
Sticking with adoption, Microsoft's board meeting is today, and we saw the news that there are some who are pushing for Amazon to make the same or a similar consideration at its board meeting. I've been following Dennis Porter at Satoshi Action Fund and the work that he's doing with individual states. who have been in talks with him about introducing strategic Bitcoin reserve legislation in their individual states. What do you make of that as a trend or as a potential trend? I know that there's been so much debate because of how exciting it's been around, if the US should do a strategic Bitcoin reserve, if it will do it first, if it will do it at all. But, if you do start to see those states move the needle a little bit faster, what kind of impact do you expect that to have on Bitcoin?
Yeah, I haven't seen any states actually pass those bills, but I have seen some introduced. Um, it really depends. I think at the state level, um, various states have different ways of managing, whether it's pension assets or other balance sheet assets, right? States have to manage and balance their budgets. The US government certainly does not. It's shown that it doesn't do it. So it's a little bit of a different story, I think, between states and like a sovereign that issues the currency itself. When it comes to any type of portfolio, corporate, individual, institutional, national, the facts about Bitcoin's historical performance hold true. Adding a small amount of Bitcoin exposure can dramatically increase the Sharpe or Sortino ratios of a general portfolio, whether that's $100 or $100 million. That's why we've seen, for example, some state pension funds like the State of Wisconsin Investment Board make an allocation through the Bitcoin ETFs. That holds true. It doesn't really matter the size. So I think it's reasonable for large allocators to look at this. And again, that's obviously historical data. But Bitcoin has consistently moved higher over its 15-year lifespan. In terms of the national strategic Bitcoin reserve idea, there's a lot of proposals being floated like this. I think in the end, every global fiat reserve currency has eventually been dethroned or failed in the history of the world. So I think if our politics could be ready to discuss this, which is a big open question, it's reasonable to wonder about what might come after the dollar, or to think about, by the way, if our competitors, allies, or adversaries are going to do something similar, to look at the game theory there and wonder what the policy should be, which I think is part of the reason you're seeing that discussion sort of heat up.
All right. A hard pivot now. Yesterday, Google announced its quantum chip Willow. I don't know how closely you're following this one, but that sent a bunch of people, at least on Crypto X, it has some fearful that Bitcoin private keys could potentially be decrypted, which would, of course, allow for potential unauthorized access to Bitcoin wallets. What do you make of this? Or at this point in that potential story, what is it that viewers of this show need to know at this point?
Yeah, there is no current threat to Bitcoin's encryption or cryptography or any real modern cryptography today. Quantum computing, now there could be some time in the future, and I would say the most aggressive estimates for when that could be a concern that I've ever seen are 10 to 20 years, and that's the most aggressive. The idea, look, Bitcoin uses two types of encryption: ECDSA, which it secures Bitcoin addresses, and SHA-256, which is what miners compute on in order to add blocks to the network, right? My understanding is at 105 qubits, which is what Google announced with Willow, ECDSA and SHA-256 could take anywhere between 1 or 100 million qubits, 1 million or 100 million. So we're not remotely close to this actually being a possibility. And I should point out that Bitcoin is very difficult to change and upgrade. That is by design, but it doesn't mean that it can't be upgraded. And I think Bitcoin developers are starting to slowly think about how to upgrade Bitcoin to be more quantum resistant. But again, it's not a fear anytime soon.
And I've got to know what you make of XRP. We don't talk about it very much here. You and I have never talked about it very much, but it did really rip after the election. And even when you saw that pause in the, call them blue chip crypto assets, Bitcoin and Ether, XRP just kept going and going. So what is behind that, and how much room does that have?
Oh man, XRP, a blast from the past. I think I've never been a big fan of XRP, the asset. I think it's never really had a clear product market fit despite a lot of marketing. However, Ripple did win a key part of their lawsuit that the SEC had brought against them related to secondary token trading. And I think it's, it could be one of the biggest beneficiaries in a change in posture from the SEC. I think it was the biggest issuer of tokens that had been sued. So I think it makes sense if as the sort of biggest target by the SEC, if the SEC totally reverses its posture on these questions, for XRP to be one of the biggest winners from it. In general, pretty low float, trading at a huge valuation, well above some major corporations. I think so far still with quite little to show for it, but the market is looking for ways to express optimism about the new administration. And in that sense, XRP was a good target for that.
Okay, that's all for Crypto World today. We'll be back again tomorrow, and we'll see you then.